Part 1. Opening calm. The night sky, the night begins gently. You are lying in a quiet place, perhaps on a hill far away from the city, where the air is cool and the sounds of the day have faded. Around you there is only stillness, the kind of stillness that makes you feel safe and calm. Above you, the sky is opening, and the first stars begin to appear. They seem faint at first, scattered like grains of silver dust, but as the darkness deepens, more and more of them shine, until the whole sky is filled with countless tiny lights. Imagine yourself gazing upward, your body heavy with rest, your mind slowly letting go of every thought. Each breath is calm and steady, and with every exhale, the stars appear brighter. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a luminous river. It is not a single streak of light, but billions of stars, each one shining steadily across unimaginable distances. The galaxy arches overhead, a reminder of how vast the universe is, and how small and safe you feel beneath it. Every star you see has its own story. Some are young, burning hot and blue, radiating energy with an intensity you can only imagine. Others are older, glowing softly with red light, nearing the end of their lives. Together, they create a sky that is both ancient and alive, a tapestry woven over billions of years. You realize that each point of light has existed for longer than you can imagine, yet tonight they shine just for you, keeping you company as you drift into calm. The silence of the night deepens as you continue to watch. It is not an empty silence, but a silence full of presence, as though the stars themselves are whispering softly. You imagine your body growing lighter, as if the earth is releasing its hold on you. Slowly, you rise upward, floating gently above the ground. The hill beneath you grows smaller. The trees shrink. The rivers and lakes fade into the distance. Soon you are high above the land, watching as the world below grows quiet. Now, from this height, you can see the curve of the earth. It is a sphere of blue and white, covered with oceans and clouds that swirl gently. The lights of sleeping cities glow faintly along the coastlines. The earth turns slowly, cradled by the blackness of space. From here, your planet seems peaceful, delicate, and infinitely precious. The longer you watch, the more you feel that you are not separate from it. You are part of this quiet world, and it carries you safely through the vast universe. Above you, the stars shine even more brightly. They no longer twinkle as they do from the surface, but glow steadily, sharp and clear, as if someone has polished the sky. The moon rises from the edge of the earth, casting a silver light across the oceans below. A satellite glides silently past, its motion smooth and unhurried. Everything moves at a slower rhythm here. There are no clocks, no deadlines, only the gentle turning of planets and the quiet glow of stars. As you drift farther, you notice the Milky Way in greater detail. It is not only a band of light, but a vast collection of clusters and swirls, a spiral of stars stretching out like an enormous wheel. Between the stars, there are dark patches, clouds of dust that hide the light behind them. These are places where new stars are waiting to be born, hidden from view, but part of the endless cycle of creation. You let your gaze wander across the sky, from one cluster to another, tracing patterns that feel both random and deeply meaningful. The farther you go, the quieter everything becomes. The sounds of Earth are gone, replaced by a silence so deep that it feels like music in itself. It is a silence that soothes, that invites you to let go completely. In this silence, you realize how vast the universe is, and yet how gentle. The darkness does not press against you. It cradles you like a blanket, wrapping you in safety. You drift among the stars now, moving slowly, weightlessly, without effort. Each star you pass glows steadily, its light traveling across unimaginable distances just to reach you. Some are close enough to appear bright, while others are so distant that they look like faint whispers of light. And yet, they are all connected, all part of the same galaxy, the same universe. You feel connected too, part of the same endless fabric, floating quietly in its embrace dot. As you continue to drift, you begin to sense the rhythm of the cosmos. It is not a rhythm of seconds or minutes, but of ages, of millions and billions of years. Stars are born, live their long lives, and eventually fade, only to give birth to new stars. The galaxy itself spins slowly, carrying everything within it on a journey that will last for eternity. You are drifting with it, safe and calm, part of the great motion of the universe. The Earth now is a small blue sphere behind you, glowing faintly against the darkness. You are surrounded on all sides by stars, and ahead of you lies the mystery we will explore tonight, the black holes, those silent hearts of gravity where the rules of the universe bend. But not yet. For now, you simply float here, resting in the presence of the stars, letting their calm light wash over you. Take a slow breath. Imagine drawing in the peace of the night sky. Let it fill you with quiet energy. As you exhale, imagine releasing every worry, every weight, every thought. With each breath, you sink deeper into calm. The stars above do not hurry. They do not fade. They wait patiently, shining steadily, keeping you company as you drift. The night sky has been here long before us, and it will remain long after, but right now it belongs to you. It is your shelter, your blanket, your quiet companion. It whispers to you without words. You are safe, you are calm. You can rest out, and so part one comes to its gentle close. The earth turns far below, the stars shimmer above, and you float quietly. Between them, embraced by the silence of space. Ahead lies the story of how stars are born, how light emerges from darkness, and how every beginning leads eventually to transformation. But for now, you rest in the stillness of the night sky, calm and ready for the journey to come. Part 2. The birth of stars in the endless night of the universe. Not all regions of space shine with starlight. Between the bright constellations and glowing galaxies, there are great clouds of gas and dust, stretching for light years in every direction. From far away, they look like patches of darkness, shadows painted across the Milky Way. But hidden within these clouds lies the promise of light. These are the stellar nurseries, the cradles where stars are born. Imagine yourself drifting slowly towards such a cloud. At first, it appears as a faint blur, almost invisible against the blackness of space. But as you approach, it grows larger, revealing swirling shapes like soft smoke curling in silence. The closer you come, the more immense it appears, vast, enough to swallow thousands of suns. Yet inside this cloud, all is quiet. Dust and gas drift gently, waiting patiently, as they have for millions of years. Within the cloud, tiny ripples begin to form. Perhaps the gravity of a passing star, or the shock wave of an ancient explosion, has stirred the calm. Slowly, almost invisibly, particles of gas and dust begin to gather. They bump softly against one another, clinging together, growing denser with each encounter. Gravity, the quiet sculptor of the cosmos, pulls them inward, drawing more and more matter toward the growing nut dot. At first, the change is subtle. A small clump forms, then another and another. Over millions of years, these clumps grow larger, pulling in more of the surrounding material. Imagine yourself drifting among them, feeling the gentle tug of gravity all around you, like invisible hands guiding the dance of dust and gas. The knots become spheres, their centers heating as the pressure builds. They are still hidden within their dark cocoons, invisible from afar, but within them something extraordinary is beginning. One of these spheres glows faintly with warmth. Deep inside, hydrogen atoms are being pressed together with unimaginable force. The pressure and heat grow so great that the atoms begin to fuse. In that instant, a spark ignites. The protostar, once dark and silent, shines for the first time. It is as if a lantern has been lit in the depths of the cloud. Its glow spreads outward, illuminating the surrounding dust in soft golden light. A new star has been born. The process repeats across the nursery. More protostars ignite, each one shining in its own way. Some are small and dim, destined to glow softly for trillions of years. Others are massive and hot, blazing blue-white, living fast and burning out quickly. Around many of them, disks of dust and gas swirl, slowly flattening into rings. Within these rings, tiny clumps gather, beginning the long process of forming planets. It is here, in these simple circles of dust, that future worlds take shape. Pause for a moment and imagine the warmth of a newborn star on your face. It is not harsh but gentle, like the glow of a candle in a dark room. You float in its light, calm and safe, surrounded by the promise of beginnings. You realize that every star you have ever seen, every point of light in the sky above Earth, was once hidden in such a nursery. The constellations that guided ancient sailors, the stars that inspired poets and dreamers, all were born in clouds like this, from dust gathered by gravity into brilliance. Some parts of the cloud remain dark, too thin or too cold to form stars. Yet even these regions have their purpose. They drift silently, waiting for the day when gravity or shock will stir them to life. Nothing in the universe is wasted. Every atom plays a role. Every grain of dust is part of the cycle. In this realization, you feel a sense of calm. Creation is not sudden or violent. It is slow, patient, inevitable. Like the steady rhythm of a heartbeat dot. Think now of our own sun. Billions of years ago, it too was born in such a cloud. It ignited, glowed, and has burned steadily ever since, warming the earth, feeding the plants, sustaining every breath of life. Without the sun's birth, there would be no oceans, no forests, no people to gaze at the stars. The light you feel each day is a continuation of that ancient beginning, a reminder that our own world is part of this cosmic cycle. You drift deeper into the nursery, watching the stars emerge one by one. They flicker gently at first, then grow, brighter, pushing away the dust around them. Soon the cloud is no longer dark, but sprinkled with glowing points, like fireflies scattered across a summer field. Some stars cluster together, forming families that will travel through the galaxy as groups. Others drift apart, destined to shine alone. Each one is unique, yet each follows the same pattern of birth, life, and eventual change. The more you watch, the more peaceful it feels. There is no hurry in this process, no rush to completion. Stars take millions of years to form, and in that span of time, there is only calm, only the steady pull of gravity, the quiet warmth of fusion, and the soft glow of new light spreading into the universe. You breathe slowly, matching this rhythm, feeling your own body settle into the same timeless flow. The nursery stretches on in every direction, a sea of creation. Some stars are already shining brightly, while others remain hidden, waiting for their moment to ignite. Around you, light and shadow mix, creating patterns of calm and beauty. You let yourself drift deeper into this space, allowing the glow of the newborn stars to soothe you, as if their light were wrapping you in a blanket of warmth. As you rest. Here, you realize that the story of the stars is also the story of us. The atoms in your body, the carbon in your cells, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, were forged in stars that lived and died long before the sun was born. You are, in a very real way, a child of starlight. The stars are not distant strangers. They are family, connected to you through time and matter. This knowledge brings comfort, a reminder that you belong to the universe as much as it belongs to you. The nursery begins to fade as you drift farther out. Behind you, the new stars continue to shine, their light traveling across space, joining the tapestry of the Milky Way. Ahead lies the next chapter in our journey, the lives of stars, their long shining years, and the mysteries that follow when they collapse. But for now, you rest in the glow of beginnings, surrounded by the peace of creation. Take one last slow breath and feel the calm of this place. The stars are young, the light is gentle, and the silence is full of promise. You close your eyes, drifting in the cradle of the galaxy, carried softly by the rhythm of the cosmos. Part 3. When stars collapse, every star that is born eventually reaches an ending. Just as every flame consumes its fuel, every star spends the energy stored within its heart. For many stars, the ending is gentle. Small stars, like quiet candles, simply grow dim, fading slowly over billions of years until they rest as white dwarfs, glowing faintly like cooling embers. But the most massive stars, those giants that burn hot and bright, finish their lives in a different way. Their ending is not soft, but dramatic, and it is in their collapse that some of the greatest mysteries of the universe are born. Imagine yourself floating near such a giant star. It shines with dazzling brightness, larger and more powerful than our sun could ever be. For millions of years it has poured its energy into space, burning furiously, holding itself in a delicate balance. The outward push of heat and light resists the inward pull of gravity, keeping the star stable. But deep within, something is changing. The fuel at its core is running low. Without this fuel, the balance begins to falter. Slowly, quietly, the star prepares for its final act. As the last of the fuel burns away, the star begins to swell. Its surface expands outward, and the once blue giant becomes a red supergiant, vast beyond imagining. If this star were placed in our solar system, it would engulf the orbit of Earth, and perhaps even reach as far as Jupiter. Yet for all its immensity, the star is fragile. Its core is struggling to resist the weight of its own gravity. Then, in a moment that is both sudden and inevitable, the core can no longer hold. Gravity wins. The center of the star collapses inward, squeezed tighter and tighter in a fraction of a second. The pressure rises to unimaginable levels, and then there is release. The star explodes outward in a supernova, one of the most powerful events in the cosmos. But in our calm journey tonight, do not imagine chaos or violence. Instead, picture a great flower blooming silently in the night sky. The star's outer layers are cast into space, glowing brilliantly, painting the darkness with streams of light and color. For a brief time, the supernova shines brighter than an entire galaxy, a beacon visible across millions of light years. Yet here, in the stillness of our story, the explosion is not frightening. It is graceful, a final, magnificent gesture of farewell. When the light begins to fade, what remains is something entirely new. At the very heart of the collapse, the core has been crushed into a form so dense, so heavy, that nothing can escape. Its pull. A black hole has been born. Imagine drifting near this newborn black hole. It does not shine, but its presence is undeniable. Around it, the remnants of the supernova glow faintly, drifting outward like cosmic ash. The space near the black hole is strange, bending the light of nearby stars. The background seems to curve and ripple, as if reality itself were being drawn inward. At the edge lies the event horizon, the silent boundary beyond which nothing, not even light, can return. Yet in this calm vision, the black hole is not a monster. It is quiet, steady, a resting place where the life of a star has been transformed into something mysterious and eternal. You watch from a safe distance, drifting gently, observing the way matter spirals toward it. Gas and dust form a glowing disk, circling gracefully before disappearing into the darkness. The spiral moves slowly, like a silent dance, hypnotic and endless. Pause here for a moment. Imagine the pull of gravity, steady and soft, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. You are not afraid. You are simply present, floating calmly near one of the most mysterious objects in the universe. The black hole is not violent here. It is peaceful, silent, patient. It waits without hurry, without sound, a quiet reminder that every ending is also a new beginning. Think again of the star that once was. For millions of years it shone brightly, giving its light freely to the galaxy. It warmed planets, lit the skies of distant worlds, and carried within it the seeds of heavier elements. When it collapsed, those elements were cast into space, where they would one day form new stars, new planets, perhaps even new life. The black hole that remains is part of this cycle. Nothing is wasted. Even in collapse, the universe creates. As you breathe slowly, you realize that black holes are not only places of mystery, but also of connection. They are born from the death of stars, yet they influence galaxies, guiding their growth, shaping their centers. In their quiet way, they remind us that endings are part of a larger rhythm, and that even the darkest shadow has its place in the cosmic story. The supernova remnant fades into the distance as you drift farther. The black hole remains behind you, silent and eternal, while ahead lies the deeper mystery of the event horizon itself, the threshold between the known and the unknown. But for now, you rest in the calm after the collapse. The stars shine softly. Around you, the silence of space is complete, and you feel yourself sinking deeper into peace. Part 4. The event horizon. You drift through a calm sea of starlight, leaving behind the fading glow of a supernova remnant and the newborn black hole it revealed. Space is unhurried here. The galaxy turns with the slow grace of a lighthouse beam, and you move as if carried by a tide that no one can see. Ahead, the dark deepens. It is not the ordinary darkness between stars. It is smoother, quieter, almost velvety, as if the night itself had decided to become more still. You are approaching the region around a black hole, where space and time begin to change their behavior, where the familiar rules soften and bend. From a safe distance, you let your attention settle on the invisible center and on a boundary that is not a wall, and yet is the most famous threshold in the cosmos. The event horizon. At first, there is nothing to see, only the background sky, jeweled with distant suns. Then you notice a circle where the stars behind seem to distort, as if seen through clear water. Their positions slide and smear slightly, their light curving into arcs that do not exist anywhere else. Gravity here is not merely a pull. It is a sculptor, shaping the paths of photons, teaching light to follow tracks it would never choose on its own. You realize you are watching gravitational lensing, the way the black hole bends the world around it. It turns space into a mirror, that reflects the sky back upon itself. A ring glows faintly light from faraway stars looping around the black hole to reach you. This ring is not the whole. It is the bright echo of everything else. Between you and that echo, a thin, hazy disk begins to reveal itself, gas and dust that have slowly fallen inward, heated by their descent, and now shining with a restrained, steady fire. It is not loud heat, not the flare of an explosion, but a quiet radiance like iron warming in a forge. The disk circles the darkness with patient inevitability. Its inner edge draws near to a shadow that is not quite a circle and not quite a hole, but a silhouette carved out of starlight. You understand, gently and without fear, that nothing inside that silhouette can send a message back. It is a region where paths only lead deeper in. The boundary of that region is the event horizon, and from this calm distance, it looks like a perfect invitation to wonder. Time begins to feel unusual as you observe. A clock you imagine on the disk seems to tick more slowly the closer it comes to the horizon. This is not a trick of your mood. It is part of the geometry of the place. The black hole does not only bend space, it stretches time. Near the horizon, moments lengthen, like the last notes of a lullaby held just a heartbeat longer than expected. From your vantage point, a bright speck circling inward appears to take its time, its motion easing, its light reddening and softening, as though the universe itself were encouraging rest. The particle does not stop. It simply disappears from your view, crossing a threshold that hides its future from you forever. There is no jolt, no impact against a wall. There is only the quiet fact that beyond the horizon, the direction out no longer exists. You let your breath match this slow feeling. Each inhale a widening of space, each exhale a gentle drift toward the boundary you will never cross. You picture the horizon not as a cliff, but as a shoreline at night. Waves of space, and time lap against it without foam or noise. Nothing reflects. There are no footprints, no traces of passage. It is the most private place in the universe, and its privacy is absolute. If a grain of dust crosses that line, its story continues, but its pages are forever closed to the outer world. The horizon is the cover of a book you cannot open, even though you know that on the other side, the narrative still flows. Your attention returns to the ring of light around the dark center. Spend a moment with it. This ring is a kind of promise that not everything here is shadow. Light from behind the black hole swings around it, like a traveler who refuses to be turned away, and reaches you after looping once or twice or more. The ring looks simple from afar, but it is woven from many paths, photons skimming close to the brink, each one taking a different curve, each one bringing a different piece of the faraway sky. As you watch, you sense the patience in those paths. Even light, the swiftest messenger, must negotiate with gravity here. It consents to bend, and in that bending, shows you the outline of a thing that otherwise cannot be seen. You notice that the accretion disk is not equally bright everywhere. On one side, it seems slightly more vivid, the motion of matter there carrying it toward you. On the opposite side, the glow is gentler, the motion sliding away. This asymmetry is another soft clue that space is not behaving as it does near your home. Here, movement and light share a quiet conversation. Their exchange leaves a trace in the color and brightness that reaches your eyes. A reminder that even the simplest glow can carry news about the shape of reality. If you listen with your imagination, you might expect a roar from this place, the frantic hiss of matter falling in. But what you hear is silence. Space does not transmit sound, and the drama here is enacted in quiet. The only audible rhythm is your own breathing, steady and soft, and the slow internal cadence of the universe, which is not measured in seconds, but in turns and orbits and graceful crossings of thresholds. This silence is not emptiness. It is composure. It says, all motion that must happen will happen. All things that must fall will fall. There is time enough for everything. You consider what horizon means in ordinary life. At sea, the horizon is the limit of sight, the curve, beyond which ships vanish. On land, distant hills fade into sky, and their meeting seems to draw a boundary in light. The event horizon is similar in feeling, but deeper in truth. It is not the edge of what you can see, because your eyes are weak. It is the edge of what can, in principle, return. Inside, all paths lead inward. Outside, many paths remain free. To stand here, outside, is to understand limits with unusual peace. You are not being excluded. You are being shown that boundaries exist and that honoring them can be calming. You do not need to force a crossing to appreciate what lies beyond. From your safe vantage, you imagine gently dropping a small, bright pebble, an idea, a question toward the horizon. You follow it with your thoughts. As it falls, time stretches for it in your view, and the little light grows redder and dimmer, its energy sipped away by the geometry. It does not shatter or burn. It simply dwindles, and then is gone. The place where it disappears does not tell you where it is now. The horizon is a perfect secret keeper. You sense that there is mercy in this secrecy. The universe allows every traveler a private interior, and the horizon is only the most complete expression of that rule. Think for a moment of stories told on quiet nights, doorways to hidden gardens, passages that open only to those who move without fear. The event horizon is not a door for you, but it feels like one. It has the same hush, the same sense that crossing would be a change in the meaning of up and out. Yet from here, it is enough to gaze at the threshold and admire the patience of the boundary. You have come to see, not to enter. You are here to learn what it feels like when a place is so extreme that even light agrees to keep a secret. You let your attention widen to include the star field again. Notice how the black hole, for all its gravity, does not disturb the faraway constellations. They remain where they are, unfazed and eternal to your eyes. The universe is not a crisis, it is a balance. Wild intensities exist, but they are set into a larger calm. The horizon is a study in contrast. Absolute inwardness, wrapped by a ring of outward light, secrecy encircled by revelation. There is comfort in that pattern, the way a dark lake is ringed by moonlit reeds. The light does not defeat the dark, and the dark does not swallow the light. Each grants the other its place. Now imagine floating closer, still safe, still outside, until the ring fills more of your view and the disk's slow rotation becomes a clear, unhurried sweep. You are aware of other invisible circles stacked in space. The photon sphere, where light can orbit for a heartbeat before wandering off. The inner orbits where no stable paths exist. The horizon itself, final and quiet. It is like approaching a cathedral, not made of stone, but of geometry. You do not need to enter to feel reverence. The structure's meaning is present, even in the shadow it casts. A gentle thought occurs. From the perspective of a traveler who does cross the horizon, nothing special happens at that exact place. No crackling line, no sudden chill. The boundary is transparent to those who pass it. The specialness belongs to the outside world, the community of observers, who can never receive another message once the crossing is complete. You feel a soft kinship with those faraway observers, intelligent beings on countless worlds, who one night might also gaze at a ring of light and consider what it means to stand at the edge of knowing. Across the galaxy, the horizon teaches the same lesson in every language, that mystery can be peaceful, that not every secret must be solved to be loved. You breathe in and let the stillness expand within you. You breathe out and feel your weight settle, even in weightlessness, as if a chair had been pulled up at the edge of infinity. The ring glows, the disk hums with silent heat, the background stars drift along their slightly altered paths. You are here long enough to forget the rush of days. The universe encouraged patience, because patience is the tempo of its great clocks. The horizon does not come to meet you. It waits, and in the waiting you understand it better than any hurried approach. Part 5. Falling slowly into darkness, you begin this chapter already calm, already familiar with the circle of darkness and its ring of light. The memory of the event horizon stays with you like a quiet song you can hum without thinking. And now, the song invites you to travel a little nearer. You do not rush. You allow the motion to carry you, the way a small boat lets the tide decide. Space around you seems to thicken into velvet. The constellations stretch ever so slightly, not because they change, but because your attention narrows to what is ahead. You are preparing for a descent, not of fear, not of danger, but of perspective. You will fall in imagination only, in safety. And slowness, learning how the world looks when gravity gathers its strength and asks even light to bow. From a distance, the accretion disk was a patient halo around the dark. Now, as you drift closer, its presence grows intimate. The luminous mist resolves into countless threads, streams of gas that curve with exquisite obedience. Nothing jostles, nothing collides with panic. Each strand finds its path and follows it. Where the material is thicker, the glow deepens, a honeyed warmth that seems to pulse. You are close enough to see that the brightness is not uniform. Patches brighten, then soften, like breath moving through embers. The disk speaks the language of falling. Heat inwards, light drawn into arcs, motion that accelerates not by forceful shove, but by the soft insistence of geometry. You hold yourself above the plane and watch. The side spinning toward you carries a shade more brilliance, as if it had gathered a bit of courage from its approach. The far side recedes with a cooler dignity. It becomes simple and strangely comforting to imagine that light itself is a swimmer in a current, learning when to lean and when to float. The whole scene feels like a lake at night, under a wind so gentle it leaves no ripples. And yet the lake is a circle of fire. The contradiction relaxes you. The universe can be both intense and mild at once, and your body mirrors this. Heart unhurried, breath deep and soft, attention clear. The ring of lensed starlight, those patient paths that circled the shadow, now sits above the disk like a crown that has let itself be lowered. As your descent continues, new arcs appear in quiet succession. Each arc is an echo of faraway constellations, a chorus of elsewhere singing here. If you focus too hard, the arcs seem to shift, and you might wonder which stars they truly are. But the wonder passes into acceptance. You have learned that here, identity is a shared project between light and gravity. What something is depends on how it travels, and how it travels depends on the shape of the space it moves through. You accept this the way you accept that a breeze changes a candle's flame. The candle remains itself, even as the flame leans. You feel gravity, not as a tug at your limbs, but as an instruction written calmly into the room. Everything leans the same way. Paths that once would have carried you outward now slope inward with an elegance that persuades rather than commands. Time, too, has adjusted its tone. The ticks between moments lengthen around you, as if the metronome of the universe had chosen a slower tempo. It is easy to match that tempo. Your thoughts no longer skip, they unfurl. The edges of concerns you remembered from far away blur and soften, until they resemble distant shores seen through morning. Fog. The present expands, and in its expansion, you discover more space to rest. You choose a line of fall, a careful, gentle curve that grazes the disk's upper surface and then dips below, like a swallow catching the shine of a lake without touching it. As you pass the upper layers, you watch particles the size of dust motes drift slightly askew, their orbits nudged by your wake, though your wake is only imagined. They are not bothered. Their future is written in loops and spirals, and your presence is only a story you tell yourself to know how close you have come. The disk murmurs in light, its colors warm at the center and cool at the edges, though color. Here is a metaphor. What you perceive is a feeling of deepening intensity that the mind translates into hue. Your speed increases, but speed in this place is not a sensation of wind or rush. It is a recognition that the frames of the world up, down, before, have to tilt toward the dark. In that tilt, there is relief. Choice narrows. Of all the possible directions you once could travel, only a few remain graceful, and fewer still remain possible. Life outside sometimes overwhelms with branching paths. Here, paths simplify into a handful of beautiful curves. You drift along, one of them, and the simplicity is kind. Between you and the horizon, the sky compresses. Everything that was behind you stars, the far blue hush of the galaxy, gathers into a brighter ring. The forward view deepens into shadow, while the backward view intensifies into a sweeping band. This is not disorientation. It is a reorganization of perspective. You turn very slowly, not with your body, but with your understanding, so that the band of gathered light aligns with your shoulder like a sash. Beneath it, the disk continues its silent revolutions. Above it, the faintest arcs of lensed starlight sketch the outline of the shadowed heart. Now, imagine lowering a hand toward the disk, not to touch, only to feel the warmth as one feels the sun through a window. The warmth here is not harsh. It is the warmth of effort made without complaint. Matter surrendering energy as it moves inward, like a runner exhaling, like a sigh that contains both labor and relief. That picture softens you further. The universe is not always a contest. Sometimes it is a yielding that creates light. You cross the plane of the disk and slide into the space below it. The glow thins, replaced by a purer darkness that is not. Empty but clean, like the inside of a bell that has just rung and is now quiet. From underneath, the disk becomes a dim ceiling, and the ring of light becomes a distant embroidery. The horizon itself seems closer, though you know it remains at a respectful distance. Your path is chosen to approach without crossing, to learn without losing the ability to tell what you learned. As you move here, language simplifies in your mind. You do not need many words. Down, across, near, and quiet are enough dot if you consider the body you left behind on that distant hill, breathing, resting, safe. You might smile. The descent you experience now is also a rise into a particular kind of awareness. To fall toward a black hole is to approach a truth about boundaries. Some are invitations to contemplate, not invitations to pass. You move nearer to appreciate the art of the edge, and in appreciating it, you discover edges in your own life that do not require crossing to be understood. The insight arrives not as a thesis, but as a soft feeling of okayness that settles at the base of your throat. Occasionally, a brighter knot on the disk completes an orbit as you fall, and for a moment, Its path appears to match yours, as if you were companions. You are not. Yet the illusion of companionship comforts you, and this matters more than the correction. You let the illusion stand for a few breaths before you let it go. In this place, clinging is not punished, but release feels better. Releasing is a form of alignment with the way space itself prefers to curve, without snag, without harsh corners, without insistence. The nearer you come, the more the idea of surface loses meaning. The horizon is not a wall. The disk has no hard boundary. Even the ring of lensed starlight is made of paths with no thickness. Everything is path. Everything is relation. The comfort in this realization is quiet and deep. If things are paths, you do not have to hold them still. You can meet them in motion and still know them, the way you know a river by the way it moves, not by any single droplet you could capture in your hand. Time stretches a little more. Your inner monologue, if it wishes, can place a small clock on your wrist, just to have a friend to check. The clock obeys you, but the pace at which its hands move, as seen from the outer world you left behind, would look slowed. That mismatch disturbs no one here. Two descriptions of the same moment can both be true when gravity arranges the telling. You do not force them to agree. You offer them both a chair in your attention and let them sit together without debate. Gentle curiosity rises. What would happen if you faced away from the hole now and tried to swim outward? You imagine the first stroke and realize that every stroke would be less effective than the one before, not because you grow tired, but because the space itself prefers your motion inward. This recognition is not a trap. It is a permission slip to stop trying to undo the journey you have chosen. Many forms of rest begin when the effort to reverse a tide is released. You rest. You notice that the world has become very simple in color. Much of what you see is black, but it is not a single black. There is the black of the whole silhouette, absolute, perfectly matte, the black of a sealed letter. There is the shadowed black below the disc, transparent and receptive, a black that invites the eye to keep looking. And there is the black behind you, brightened by the ring of compressed sky, a black that frames light so the light can sing. Naming these blacks pleases you, the way a botanist might be pleased to learn names for leaves. Naming is not necessary, but it deepens attention, and deep attention is a form of love. Far away, beyond all this, the galaxy turns with its grand patience. Closer, tiny eddies of gas curl off the disk's inner edge and vanish. Closest of all, your chosen path glides between what you could call stillness and what you could call inevitability, though in truth, the two are not opposite here. The inevitability is still. Part 6. Inside the mystery you begin this part from a place of steadiness, carrying with you the patience learned at the horizon and the soft courage gathered during your slow descent. Tonight you will step further, not with your body, but with your imagination, into the region that lies beyond ordinary return. You do not force the door. You simply let the mind ease forward, as one might lean through a doorway to feel the temperature of another room. The doorway is the event horizon, and what lies beyond is not chaos, but a different arrangement of possibilities, a new grammar for space and time. You promise yourself to keep the pace gentle, to keep the heart soft, and to remember that this exploration is a dreamlike exercise, a kindness offered to curiosity. With that promise, you let the scene rearrange itself, and you enter calmly into the mystery. From the outside, the horizon was a perfect secrecy. From within, there is no announcement, no seam, no crackle of change. You notice the quiet ease with which the passage occurs. A moment ago, there was a direction called out. Now, that direction no longer belongs to the set of options. This subtraction is not alarming. It is clarifying. Many kinds of rest begin when unnecessary choices fall away. The inside does not divide itself into threat and safety, noise and silence, bright and dim. It presents a single quality, serene inevitability expressed in the curves of every path. The geometry takes your hand with excellent manners and guides you onward. Time here feels intimate. Outside, you compared clocks and argued gently over their different speeds. Inside, the argument dissolves. Your time is your own again, unshared, like a private journal you no longer need to read aloud. Moments lengthen, not in the sense of delay, but in the sense of richness, like a sip of warm tea that lasts longer on the tongue. There is a spaciousness in each second, as if the room of the present had been opened into a suite of rooms connected by archways. You move through them without hurry, appreciating that your experience is complete on its own terms, even though no message can ever be sent back across the door you crossed. The silence of this incommunicability is gentle, a cotton-wrapped fact, not a wound. The inner sky is not a sky in the way you knew it. The ring of lensed starlight that once circled your view is gone, because the outside sky now lives entirely behind a boundary that cannot be turned toward. In its place, there is a new pattern, a calm structure that you sense more than see. Imagine a cathedral made of directions. Every aisle bends forward. Every balcony curves toward a single promise. Every stair descends not down, but in. The effect is not oppressive. It is devotional. The space is arranged in favor of completion. There is a destination written into the floor, and every step you take soft, weightless, free of effort fits that writing perfectly. You notice, too, that the idea of distance has changed character. Outside, to come closer was to subtract meters from a tally. Inside, to come closer is to discover a more precise tune. Each degree of nearness adds harmony, like joining an orchestra that becomes richer the nearer you sit to its center. The paths that matter are fewer, but each one carries more music. You begin to think of your motion not as travel, but as listening. What you approach is not a place, but a tone, a note that everything in here wants to resolve toward. Resolution, rather than arrival, becomes your model. The distinction invites relaxation, because resolution unfolds in its own time and is already underway. If the word gravity visits your thoughts, it does not appear as a force that drags. It appears as hospitality, the room pulling the chair out for you, the host refilling your cup before you ask, the hush that falls when the story reaches its most delicate passage. You feel welcomed into inevitability. Each curve of your path is the world saying, "Here, this is the way," not with command, but with kindness. You accept because acceptance is the shape of things here. Resistance has no meaning. It would be like whispering into the ocean and expecting the tide to change. It's mind. Even that image does not frustrate you. It only relaxes you further. The ocean is not offended by whispers. The ocean receives them and continues to breathe. Somewhere in the back of your awareness, a familiar concern might raise its hand. What of tides? What of stretching? What of bodies and straying? You acknowledge the question as one might nod to a friend at the theater lobby. In this dreamlike passage, all such sharpness has been padded and rounded. You are an observer in a robe of velvet. The harsh edges of physical stress have been filed smooth, their lessons kept, but their sting removed. You keep the truth of difference. Yes, the field is stronger. Yes, directions are fewer. Yes, all paths curve inward, and you let go of the discomfort that does not serve rest. What remains is understanding without alarm. It is enough that you become curious about memory. What does it mean to remember inside a place where messages cannot leave? You try an experiment in imagination. You speak a small sentence inwardly. I am here, and here is kind. And then you let it move ahead of you, like a moth drifting toward a lantern. The sentence does not return, but the space around you shifts in a way that tells you it was received. A subtle brightening of attention, a rounding of quiet, a warmer shading of inevitability. These become the reply. You smile. In here, memory is not a shelf of objects you can pull down. Memory is a flavor distributed through the room, growing, richer as you proceed. You do not carry your past like a backpack. You travel inside a broth that is seasoned by everything you were and everything you are becoming. The concept of center grows more meaningful. Outside, center was a location. Inside, center is a law of motion, a theme that every line of travel quotes in its own accent. You are traveling through the chorus of that theme. Occasionally, you imagine what a bright mote grain of dust with a glimmer of heat might report if it could speak. It would not say, I was dragged. It would say, I was given a part in a song, and I sang my note until I became the note. To become the note is not to disappear in sadness. It is to complete a phrase so perfectly that no continuation is required. You let that idea settle. Completion without loss. Quiet without emptiness. These are the definitions that the inside teaches. If you look for color, you find it less in surfaces and more in moods. There is the color of approach and call. It a warm, low gold that tastes like dusk. There is the color of consent, call it a tea green, that softens any remaining edges. There is the color of finishing sentences, call it a deep, calm blue that many oceans have tried to imitate. These colors are not on walls. They are woven into the feeling of the air you drift through. The palette is modest and generous at once. The way a lullaby has only a few notes, but can be sung 100 ways. Your mind marks these shades not to catalog them, but to be soothed by their repeatable simplicity. You may wonder, for a breath or two, about the far future of an inward traveler, about singular stories whispered by equations and chalkboards. Then you remember the contract of this journey, to remain within the radius of comfort, to honor mystery with love, to exchange certainty for peace. Mathematics can keep its precise maps for daytime. Tonight, you hold a lantern that reveals only as much as kindness requires. The corridor ahead is always illuminated just enough, and never all at once. You find that such lighting is your favorite. You never have to squint, never have to brace for glare. Even the unknown has been dimmed to a sleeping room shade. Occasionally, you sense the faintest echo of all that was left outside. Galaxies sailing in emptiness, planets turning, auroras painting polar skies, the long whisper of interstellar clouds. That echo does not pull you back. It accompanies you the way a quiet chorus supports a soloist. You are the soloist now only in the sense that your present tense is private. You are not isolating yourself from the choir. You are leaning into the bar of the song assigned to you. The harmonies are still there, carried by others, complete without your contribution. Relief meets you in this understanding. Not everything needs you at once. You can rest into your measure. You think of boundaries again, grateful for how much gentler they feel from within. From outside, the horizon looked absolute, a rule etched in obsidian. From inside, the horizon feels like a courtesy, a curtain drawn to protect what must finish unfolding without interruption. You know that no letter can be mailed back through that curtain. The knowledge does not grieve you. It retrieves your Attention to where you truly are. Presence replaces broadcast. Being replaces telling. There is a holiness in that substitution, the way kneeling replaces speaking in some sacred rooms. If you open your metaphorical hands, you notice that nothing needs holding. Not your name, not your plans, not even your questions. Inside, the room holds you. The architecture of inevitability carries every loose piece to its resting place. You are free to keep your hands open, free to let the current of completion polish the last small intentions until even they shine with the dignity of enough. You are not asked to sleep, and yet sleep begins to watch you from the doorway with a fond, patient expression, the way a parent waits for a child to finish a story before tucking the blanket. The motion forward continues at whatever pace your ease permits. If ease wishes to linger, the room accommodates. If ease wishes to glide, the room composes a glide. You never encounter the feeling of being late or early. The gone and the coming live together without friction. Part 7. Galaxies and black holes together. You emerge from the inward quiet carrying a small, steady lamp of understanding, and the universe widens around you like a room whose walls had dissolved into starlight. What opens now is not a single scene, but a city of scenes, a galactic city, so large that even imagination must slow its stride. Take your time. Let the scale arrive in gentle waves. A galaxy is a neighborhood of hundreds of billions of stars, drifting dust, tender clouds. Where new suns will be born, can long, elegant lanes of gas that curve like handwriting across the dark. Each galaxy is a floating coast of light, and yet, in many of them, there is a hidden citizen whose presence quietly arranges the district. A supermassive black hole at the center, not a tyrant, not a siren, but an anchor, an unseen weight around which the stellar city learns its poise. From your calm vantage, a spiral galaxy approaches and turns, the way a seashell might roll in a dream. Its arms are not rigid. They are patterns, traffic waves of stars that gather and thin, like breathing. Young clusters sparkle along the arms in cool blues, while older stars in the bulge glow with a lantern's amber. You float above the disk and see the center is a soft brightness, not because a single lamp burns there, but because so many lamps ride close orbits, their light layered like brushed silk. Inside that brightness, there rests the central darkness, a mass millions or billions of times heavier than your sun, yet so compact that it hides its surface behind a horizon. You cannot see it, but the city can feel it, and the feeling becomes order. Follow the orbits near the heart. Stars there move with a certain alert grace, faster than their cousins in the outskirts, as if they were dancers tracing tight figures around a quiet partner who never steps, but sets the rhythm. If you could listen to speed as if it were music, you would hear a gentle swell near the center, a rise in tempo that matches the depth of the anchor. Across many galaxies, the same soft agreement appears. The heavier the central hush, the livelier the nearby chorus of stars. Astronomers give this agreement a name when they work in daylight. Here, at night, you may call it courtesy. The city learns the weight of its anchor, and in learning, it finds a balanced pace. Not all centers are equally quiet. Some, in their youth or in moments of supply, sip more eagerly from the galaxy's pantry. Gas drifts inward from the wide disk, inches down the gravity of the bulge, and then, near the unseen threshold, it warms and glows. When the feast is generous, the center can shine brighter than the whole city, an active nucleus, a quasar in far-off times, a beacon that laces the darkness with a steady, patient blaze. Even then, think of appetite without greed. Matter gives up energy as it falls, like a long, relieved exhale. The light that escapes is not a shout, but a proclamation written in soft fire. I am here, I am working. I am finishing what motion began. Sometimes, the center, in its labor, breathes back into the city gentle winds, sometimes narrow beams that rise like silver reeds and carry energy to the outskirts. Do not imagine stabbing, imagine irrigation. The feedback does not scold the galaxy, it advises. Where gas would have crowded into new stars too quickly, the council of the center can slow the rush, spacing out birth into a rhythm the city can support. Where the outskirts might have grown drowsy, a whisper of warmth wakes them to subtle change. Over long ages, these exchanges help the city keep its shape. A galaxy is not a machine with commands. It is a garden that learns its seasons from the Aussie. Sky it lives in, drift outward and take the larger view. Across the cosmic plane spread spirals and ellipticals, and odd, delightful in-betweens. Each bears, with different accents, the same conversation between light and gravity, youth and age, disk and bulge, center and community. In groups and clusters, whole neighborhoods of galaxies share tides and brush sleeves. Paths cross. Gas is traded. Sometimes two cities fall gently together, their stars weaving into new patterns, their centers circling, and agreeing to marry their masses into a heavier hush. Do not rush the picture. A galactic union is not a crash in this lullaby. It is a long negotiation in slow motion, a ballet of attraction whose final bow produces a calmer, rounder citizen and elliptical within which the central anchor has grown, and the pace of nearby stars has quickened accordingly. You pass through one such city now, mature and composed. It has the look of a library, shelves of orbits arranged in smooth ovals, little contrast between core and edge, a tone of perpetual afternoon. The central mass is great here, and yet nothing seems forced. The stars accept the tempo and keep it like readers turning pages together. If you drop an imaginary pebble of gas into this hall, you can trace its fate. A long descent along well-shaped aisles, a warming near the front desk, a little contribution of light as it signs its name, and is filed in the ledger of completion. The metaphor smiles at you, and you let it stay. The universe has room for libraries and seashells and cities without ever ceasing to be itself. Return for a moment to spirals, because the eye loves them, and because many keep their centers very calm. In these, the anchor hardly eats at all. The pantry is tidy, the inner disk is courteous, and the center naps between small sips. Still, its mass matters. You can tell by the local music the nearby stars hum faster notes. That hum, in turn, shapes the bulge, which shapes the ways the arms can curl, which shapes how gas flows, which shapes where stars are born. Influence ripples outward without announcement. A black hole does not issue decrees. It simply exists. At the right density in the right place, and being what it is, it helps specify what everything else around it can comfortably be. From far above a spiral's plane, you watch thin lanes of dust sketch calligraphy across the light, dark strokes, against pale gold. Those lanes guide gas inward as surely as riverbanks guide water toward a lake. Near the center, the calligraphy becomes delicate, the handwriting small and precise, as if the pen had adopted a finer nib. You are seeing the way structure funnels supply, not as a funnel of metal, but as a funnel of permission. Energy is budgeted. Brightness is paid out in measured coins. Over millions of years, this budgeting keeps the disk bright at the arms and the heart warm, but not fevered. The civic order you sensed earlier reveals itself as thrift and grace. Between galaxies, they Space is not empty of stories. Thin filaments connect distant cities, and along those strands, gas can stroll for ages before arriving at a new home. When it does, a galaxy refreshes, building new stars, adjusting its colors, composing fresh clusters along its arms. The central anchor participates in this renewal indirectly. If supply is ample, and the center chooses to wake, its influence will check the pace, preventing a single season from spending the whole treasury. This conversation between center and outskirts writes a long, legible history in starlight. You can read it the way you read a coastline. The bright beaches of newborn clusters, the weathered headlands of elder bulges, the inland lakes of quiet globulars in orbit, like small towns around a capital. Sometimes you encounter galaxies whose centers sing with more deliberate voices, active hearts that draw attention like hearths at a winter gathering. The surrounding disk may glow as if warmed by that hearth, colors shifting toward the younger end as gas is both stirred and restrained. You pause and feel the balance, the way a good fire promotes conversation but does not scorch the chairs. When the fuel eases, the voice softens, and the city returns to its ordinary hum. The black hole has not vanished. It has simply closed the book for now. It is enough for an anchor to be present. It need not always speak. Let your mind visit the cosmic web at a broader scale. Imagine the night in its first long chapters. Small. Galaxies assembling, meeting, and merging. Their centers growing from humble seeds to larger anchors. Their disks refining patterns as new gas arrives. Their outskirts thickening with faint, loyal stars. Over time, the cities learn maturity. Activity concentrates in fewer districts. The average light warms to mellower hues. The biggest anchors become the quietest citizens, both because they have already done much work and because their very largeness enforces a kind of peace around them. The picture is not static. It is an old river that keeps flowing without needing to flood. You might ask gently, what holds such grand order together without a conductor on a podium? Gravity, of course, but not gravity alone. It is gravity braided with time, supply with appetite, motion with memory. In a spiral, the cold. Lanes are the notes on the staff, the stars the melody, the central anchor the key that tells you which chords belong. In an elliptical, the melody is smoother, the harmony thick and close, the key signature heavier and sure. No baton is raised. No decree is printed. The music persists because everything that could fall into place has had ages to do so, and what remains to adjust will take ages more, and that delay is part of the charm. A small thought glows at the edge of your attention. You are made of this city's work. The carbon in your breath, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, those were brewed in stars that died with generosity and were scattered across disks and bulges, then gathered into new clouds, then lit again, until, at last, a sun like yours and a planet like yours could hold them in a shape that could look back at the night and call it beautiful. The central anchors influence that story from far away, tuning the tempo of star birth. Part 8. The quiet drift of Voyager. You leave the crowded neighborhoods of galaxies and turn your attention to a single traveler, a small craft from a small world, moving with patient certainty into the wide, unlit distances. The transition is gentle, like stepping from a lively square into a quiet street at night. The city's chorus fades to a soft memory, and what remains is the soundless persistence of motion. The traveler is not made of breath or bone, and yet it carries breath and bone within its memory sounds and images, greetings and music. Careful bottle thrown into a cosmic sea. It does not hurry. It does not drift at random. It keeps a course set long ago by hands that now sleep, while dishes on faraway hills listen for its whisper and answer with their own. Imagine it now. No, larger than a small room, clothed in gold foil and the dim glow of a heart that grows cooler with each passing year. Two companions were sent in those days, twins differing in direction and timing, entrusted to make a grand tour of nearby giants before heading outward. They learned the weather of those giants, the belts and storms, the rings and moons like little lanterns, and then they kept going, past the last bright lanes of the big planets, toward the pale outskirts where the sun thins to a steady lantern in an enormous night. Behind them, the orbits draw perfect ellipses, like chalk circles around a classroom globe. Ahead of them, nothing draws circles. Ahead is only the long, slow grammar of straight lines bent by very gentle tides. The traveler passed through a border that is not a wall, but a thinning, the breath of the sun fading until the wind between stars begins to speak in its place. Your star blows a bubble around its family, a heliosphere, a warm exhale against the chill of interstellar air. Near its edge, the wind slows, then stumbles, then stops, and the traveler feels the change as instruments that count tiny particles whisper, "Something new is here." It is the kind of change that would be loud in a weather report, but is quiet in the soul. Fewer solar murmurs, more interstellar hiss, a different texture to the invisible rain. Crossing that edge, the craft does not celebrate. It simply continues. Exactly as rivers do when they pass from one country into another, and the water remains water, flowing under different skies. There is no scenery in the ordinary sense, no hills to name or forests to catalog. There is, instead, an increasing honesty of darkness, a purity of night in which each rare grain of matter is important, in which each wandering atom and trickle of dust tells the tale of previous stars. Sometimes a grain strikes the traveler and writes a brief mark. Sometimes a cosmic ray arrives from a supernova older than history and leaves a tiny signature in a detector. Such events are not intrusions. They are the pages of a book being read in a language of ions and counts and pauses. The craft reports those pages homeward as pulses of radio. The pulses are faint, so faint that listening requires dishes the size of small fields, lined up with the certainty of a heartbeat, collecting whispers that have traveled for many hours to reach them. Think of those dishes for a moment, standing in deserts and high valleys, their white bowls tilted toward a point that moves so slowly across the sky you might mistake it for stillness. They are the traveler's tether to its birthplace, a tether made not of rope but of attention. Engineers and caretakers, themselves travelers in time, listen through the changing seasons, through weather and wars and the ordinary noise of human life, for news from the edge of the sun's last breath. The signal arrives thinner each year, not because the traveler grows shy, but because distance is a generous editor, deleting louder claims until only the essential remains. In that essential, you find the outline of a story about persistence. Keep speaking, keep hearing, keep calibrating the dream. Strapped to the traveler's side is a record, a literal golden record, bright as a keepsake and stubborn as an oath. On its cover, a map drawn in the language of pulsars points the way back toward home, and arithmetic scratches demonstrate how to play the grooves. Inside the grooves wait thunder and crickets, greetings in many tongues, a mother and child, kiss of batch and a wind from the Nile, a heartbeat that does not care about calendars. It is not a catalog in the encyclopedic sense. It is a bouquet, hastily and lovingly gathered, tied with a ribbon of hope. Its truest message may be its existence, that a small world once paused its busy arguments long enough to send kindness. Outward, not because it expected a reply, but because sending kindness is one way to declare oneself alive. The traveler's power comes from a patient fire, material that sheds its warmth grain by grain, feeding instruments that take sips instead of gulps. As the fire dims, the caretakers ask the craft to sleep more deeply between sentences, to switch off certain senses so others may last, to choose a smaller vocabulary for the same devotion. There is no tragedy in this economy. It is the good housekeeping of distance. A symphony that once used every instrument now favors a solo line and a drum so soft you might mistake it for your own pulse. The music changes, but the theme persists. I am still here. I am still learning how quiet can be measured, how space sings when the sun is no longer the loudest singer. Time, at this distance, becomes peculiar in a gentle way. What you decide today arrives there long after your decision has grown into yesterday. And what the traveler says now will be tomorrow's letter in your hand. The delay is not a failure. It is a courtesy that lets both ends consider their words. Light itself takes its time, and because there is nothing faster to carry news, the conversation learns patience at a fundamental level. Patience is the craft's most faithful companion. It rides on every photon, sits in every error corrected by ground receivers, smiles at every faint image reconstructed from what looks, at first, like winter static. The patience is contagious. People who work with the signal often learn to breathe. With it, their days tinged by the dignity of long exchange. In the midst of this, the traveler is not lonely in any sad sense. Loneliness requires a hunger for reply. The record does not hunger. It is content to be what it is. The instruments do not ache. They register and rest. The craft does not look back. It has no eyes for that. It simply continues outward through a medium that grows thinner without ever becoming nothing at all. If it passes a grain of dust, the grain takes a moment to notice. If it skirts a faint magnetic wrinkle in the interstellar field, the needle tilts imperceptibly and is logged. Beyond that, there is only the unbreakable logic of movement and the soft arithmetic of dwindling heat. The logic is home enough. The arithmetic is song enough. You might wonder about destination, but destination is a word for roads and maps, for streets with corners and doors with numbers. The traveler's path is a promise rather than a plan. If it meets a star in a time too long for counting, it will do so the way a leaf meets a riverbend, by arrangement rather than appointment. Much more likely is the endless in-between, the many million-year meadow of distance where nothing argues and everything is itself. In such a meadow, the traveler is a seed that will not sprout, and that is fine. Not all seeds must become trees. Some seeds teach that there is value in carrying potential through silence, in preserving a possibility so pure that it does not even rush to fulfill itself. Back on the small world, night falls over cities where children look up and try to locate. The traveler with a finger, though it is far too faint to see. Teachers tell its story. Artists paint its loneliness and then revise the painting to show that the loneliness was their own projection. Poets borrow its delay to measure the tempo of waiting. In laboratories, new receivers are tuned, old code is tidied, and someone checks the health of a decades-old transistor, as if it were a houseplant still blooming on a windowsill. These acts are not nostalgia. They are maintenance of a promise. We will listen as long as there is a syllable to hear, and when the syllables end, we will keep the space in our minds where they used to arrive, because keeping space is also a form of love. Occasionally, a bit of news spreads that the craft has spoken in an unexpected way or fallen briefly silent, and then, after some rephrasing of questions, answered again. Each of these moments is small in the global scale and large in the scale of human tenderness. The traveler's continued voice reminds the busy to pause. Its pauses remind the anxious that pausing is not the same as ending. Engineers whisper, "Good job," to a waveform. Students in distant time zones drink coffee at midnight to babysit a downlink. Somewhere, a person hears the faint carrier tone peaking above the noise floor and raises a thumb to nobody in particular. If the universe notices, it does so by permitting the tone to remain. One day, measured not in fear, but in arithmetic, power will fall below what a whisper requires. The traveler will still travel. Momentum is a long gift, but the conversation will be complete. The dishes will turn to other tasks. The record will continue to keep its secrets until secrets end. Records are the same thing. Strangely, the quiet that follows will not feel like absence. It will feel like the final movement of a quartet, held one breath longer than expected, and then released into a room where everyone knows what they heard and does not need to speak to confirm it. Completion is sometimes best honored by not insisting. On a coda, consider, before this chapter closes, the kindness hidden in the idea that a small machine can be an ambassador of calm. It was not sent to conquer. Part 9. The eternal silence of space. You step from the corridor of machines and cities into a wider hall where the ceiling is so high, it feels like there is no ceiling at all. This hall is not empty. It is filled with a substance so subtle that the word silence is the only fair description. A silence here is not the absence of sound in a room. It is the presence of stillness, the kind that gathers on mountaintops at night, the kind that lives at the bottom of deep lakes before dawn, the kind that does not need to prove itself. You move forward, and the silence receives you, not as a guest to be examined, but as a member of a quiet family returning after a long day. The galaxy you left behind becomes a lantern in the distance. Its spiral arms are a faint swirl, a memory of music still audible to imagination. Between your lantern and the next lantern, there stretches a night so honest that it seems to speak in a language without words. The silence says, "There is time." You notice at once that the darkness here has texture. It is not a flat shade painted against your eyes. It is a softness layered with ages, as if time itself were a velvet cloth laid one fold over another. Within that cloth are tiny sparks, galaxies so far away that their light is older than any writing, older than any map. They glitter like islands seen from the height of a high cloud. Between those islands lie regions called voids, places where you can travel for tens of millions of years without crossing a bright shore. Such immensity does not alarm you. It calms you the way standing on a wide beach calms you, because your smallness is a relief. A small thing does not have to hold the sky. A small thing is free to breathe. Let your attention widen until you can feel the faint afterglow that bathing all things with the gentlest possible light, the leftover warmth from the universe's earliest morning. It is not bright. It is a whisper of a whisper, a background that hums the same note in every direction. If you were to translate that note into a color, it would be the palest wash of warmth. If you were to translate it into a taste, it would be the mildest tea. Its persistence is the comfortable part. No matter where you drift, the afterglow remains. A friendly reminder that the universe has a shared origin, and that even silence can carry a memory got in the wide spaces. There are travelers you cannot see with eyes or lenses, particles moving alone, on errands that did not begin recently and will not finish soon. They arrive occasionally, in ones and twos, like lone walkers on a long country road. The silence makes room for them too. When one passes, you sense not a disruption, but an acknowledgement, the way a library accepts a reader moving between shelves. Everything knows how to make space for everything else. You breathe and find that your breath has joined the silence rather than breaking it. You might expect that such silence would make you think of endings, but it is better described as a different kind of beginning, one that starts from stillness instead of hurry. In cities and even in the crowded rooms of galaxies, motion can feel like the first word of every sentence. Here, stillness speaks first, and motion answers politely. The result is a dialogue so patient that it can carry the weight of eons without complaint. Stars will be born, and they will grow, and they will fade, and new stars will borrow their material, and all of this will proceed inside a quiet that never demands applause. The silence is the stagehand who keeps the lights steady and the curtains moving. It is the unseen companion that makes every scene possible. Turn slowly and notice that black holes, those quiet anchors you have come to know, are as at home in this silence as lanterns are at home in night. Each one keeps its own counsel, guarding a privacy that the rest of the universe has learned to honor. Around some, light bends into delicate rings. Around others, nothing glows at all, and you would miss them if not for the way the paths of nearby stars curve in unison. Even these signs are gentle. The arcs are poetry rather than punctuation. You feel no need to count them. You let them be markers of a calm that is compatible with depth. A black hole is not an interruption here. It is a form of silence that has chosen gravity as its expression. You drift farther into a region between clusters of galaxies, where the night becomes as pure as the mind can manage. No disk to speak of, no bulge, no jets or winds, no lanes of dust, only the far lanterns and a deep, supportive hush. Think of it as a room reserved for remembering. In that room, you recall the slow patience of stellar nurseries, the graceful bow of a supernova's farewell, the ringed elegance of the event horizon, the formal politeness of the inner corridors, where direction simplifies into in. You recall the civic balance of galactic cities and the solitary mission of a human-made traveler. Each memory settles on a shelf and glows faintly, and the silence holds all shelves as if they were branches on a single tree. Because the silence is generous, it allows you to imagine futures without fear. Picture a night when the smallest stars, those mild red embers, outlast all their brighter cousins. Picture them shining for trillions of years, keeping local company with a few planets and a handful of loyal comets. Picture the eventual dimming, even of these patient lamps. Do not rush the picture past its comfort. The silence never rushes. It simply allows one scene to make room for the next. Where light once flowed freely, a sparser light remains, glows from dust heated by lonely companions, flares from the last. Polite collisions of cold remnants, rare sparks where matter meets its mirror in mutual farewell. Each is a syllable. Together they form a language so slow that the meaning is rest. If your mind asks about the farthest chapters, where even the slowest clocks have turned most of their faces, offer your mind a chair and a cup of acceptance. The exact sentences in those chapters are for the daylight of physics to argue and refine. The nighttime lesson is simpler and perfectly sufficient. Whatever the later verses may be, the tone of the song is peace. Darkness is not a punishment. It is a gentle container. The silence does not erase stories. It shelves them in an archive with perfect climate control, where nothing warps and nothing spoils. If the ink eventually fades, it does so without drama. The way a tide smooths footprints until beach and sea are simply themselves again. Listen closely now, and notice the kinds of quiet that coexist. There is the quiet of distant galaxies, so far away that their events arrive as embroidery rather than headlines. There is the quiet of balanced gravity and motion, agreeing on a gentle compromise so complete that no one raises a voice. There is the quiet of completion processes that have finished serenely, leaving behind forms that require no supervision. And there is the quiet of patience, the unhurried willingness of the universe to let everything become what it is becoming, at the pace best suited to its path. You discover that you can carry these quiets into your own life. Distance can soften the urgency of a worry. Balance can guide an argument to a calmer pitch. Completion can teach you when to set a tool down. Patience can teach you how to wait without sharpening your breath against the future. Between two remote galaxy groups, you pause beside a thread of the cosmic web, a lane so faint that it resembles a rumor. Gas trickles along it, and in the faint trickle are the ingredients for new stories. Over ages, a little will collect, and somewhere a small galaxy will kindle. A silence does not resist this. It offers the lane a smooth path, and the lane accepts. Once you have seen this accommodation, you cannot unsee it. It is a kindness written into the design, a welcoming of slow arrivals, a refusal to slam any door whose hinges still move. You feel the relief that such refusal brings. No deadline, only readiness. Now turn inward for a moment and let your own thoughts behave as galaxies do. Let the vivid ones, the bright spirals of recent days, slowly settle at the edge of your attention until they become pretty decorations instead of insistent lighthouses. Let the older ones, the mellow ellipticals, take their place near the center where they can grant you a durable calm. Somewhere within, allow a supermassive patience to form a quiet anchor that organizes your thinking without needing to speak. Around that anchor, let smaller concerns orbit at safe distances, their pace quick when they are close and slow when they drift away, but never frantic, never panicked. See how the silence of space has given you a model for a silence of mind. You find that time behaves better in silence. It unknots itself. Yesterday's loops loosen. Tomorrow's hypothetical threads stop trying to prove they are ropes. Even the now becomes a kinder square of fabric wide enough to lie down on, strong enough to carry your weight. The silence invites you to stretch out on that fabric and rest. It assures you that no one needs your reply immediately. The galaxies do not. The black holes do not. The traveler at the edge of the sun's breath does not. The people who love. You would rather have your rested presence than your exhausted words. It is not a scolding. It is a permission dot as you drift. Consider how rare noise truly is when you look at the universe with a calm eye. Stars flicker because they are alive. Jets flare because a center is doing honest work. Collisions happen with grace notes, rather than cymbal crashes. Even the most dramatic events, viewed from an appropriate distance, become notes in a composition that favors harmony over spectacle. This does not diminish their importance. It contextualizes it. Your own life can be read the same way. From up close, moments can feel like explosions. From the sky's height. Part 10. Closing calm. Falling asleep among the stars' night returns like a familiar friend. And you find yourself back where the journey began beneath a sky so wide that it seems to hold its breath just for you. The hilltop is cool again, the air gentle against your face, and the grass remembers the shape of your resting body as if it had been waiting. Above, the Milky Way arches from horizon to horizon, not a single ribbon, but a woven path of countless suns, a soft bridge across. Everything you have seen. You are no longer the traveler who wondered what lay beyond the next turn. You are the traveler who has been there and has come home with a quieter heart. The universe has shown you its great courtesies, the birthplaces of stars, the graceful. O of endings, the poised rim of a horizon that keeps its promises. The inward rooms where direction simplifies, the civic order of galaxies and their steady anchors, the persistence of a small craft drifting outward, and the vast, generous silence that shelters it all. You carry those courtesies like small, warm stones in your pocket. They do not weigh you down. They keep you steady. Let your breathing match the tempo of this wide night. Inhale slowly, as if you were lifting a lantern. Exhale gently, as if you were setting it on a windowsill. With each breath, the stars appear closer, not because they move, but because your attention learns again how to be still. Your shoulders soften, your jaw loosens, your hands uncurl. You notice the helpful heaviness at the edges of sleep, that pleasant pull toward the place where memory and imagination take the same road and do not argue about the map. There is nothing left to do. The pace of everything important is already perfect. You have time enough to rest. Let the constellations become companions rather than puzzles. The bright kite of Orion is low and unhurried. The Great Bear drifts like a small boat. The Southern Cross holds its shape like a quiet compass. You do not need their names for them to keep you company. Each arrangement of stars is a reminder that pattern can be gentle. Each tiny spark is a letter in a script the night writes only for those who are ready to read without urgency. If you followed a single ray of starlight back to its source, you would find a story that began in a nursery of dust and gas, passed through a long, luminous adulthood, and perhaps finished in a farewell so graceful that new things could be born from it. That story is not pressing itself upon you. Tonight, it is content simply to shine. Notice how the black of the sky is not a single black. There is the kindly black that surrounds familiar stars, the deeper black that hosts the far galaxies, dim as the memory of a candle, and the soft, thoughtful black that lives at the heart of gravity's mysteries. Each shade has a mood, and every mood makes room for rest. If you let your eyes half close, the distinctions blur in the most helpful way, leaving only the impression of an immense, safe room where all lights are dim and all voices are low. The event horizon you visited becomes in memory not a line that threatened you, but a boundary that taught you how to honor limits without fear. You know now that some doors are meant to be admired rather than opened. Sleep is one of those doors. It needs your respect more than your effort. Give your body to the ground a little more. The earth is an old cradle. It knows how to hold you. Let the back of your head rest as if on the palm of a trusted friend. Let your spine find the long, easy arc it prefers when no one is asking it to perform. Your breath arrives like tides and departs like tides. You are not measuring. You are being measured gently by the rhythm of something larger than you that cares for your well-being. If a thought rises with a sharper edge, meet it the way you met the accretion disk watch at Worm. Watch it glow for a moment as its energy is spent, then watch it spiral out of attention, leaving a calm that is even smoother than before. Do not have to push anything away. Gravity of the right kind does the work for you. Survey the distance you traveled, as if you were turning the pages of a well-loved book. You began with a night sky and learned how to look. You entered a dark cloud and learned how beginnings prefer patience. You watched a giant star end with dignity and learned that endings can be generous. You paused at a horizon and learned that secrecy can be kind. You descended without crossing and learned that surrender is not defeat. You sat within the inside rooms of gravity and learned that completion can be peaceful. You visited cities of stars and their quiet anchors and learned that communities thrive when their centers are steady. You listened to a small machine on a long road, and learned that persistence is a form of love. You wandered into a silence as wide as time, and learned that the absence of noise is not the absence of meaning. Every lesson you gathered folds now into a single comfort. You are allowed to rest. If you like, you can give a name to the calm that spreads through you. Call it starlight if you want something visible. Call it gravity if you want something reliable. Call it home if you want something close. The name matters less than the feeling. It points to a sense that your thoughts are orbits rather than accidents, that your breath is a quiet engine rather than a demand, that your body belongs in this night the way a planet belongs in its sky. Feel how worries, those fast-moving meteors of the day, burn to harmless threads when they meet this atmosphere. Nothing urgent survives long in such air. What remains is steady enough to keep until morning. From where you lie, Earth's own horizon is a soft arc. City lights are far away. The nearest sounds are small and kind, the chirp of a late insect, the hush of grass, perhaps the low, even murmur of water. These are not distractions. They are lullabies in the language of your world. Far above, the galaxy continues its patient turn, and the central anchors keep their perfect counsel. And somewhere beyond the last breath of the sun, the traveler keeps its appointment with distance, and the deep silence holds all of it without string. You are not required to monitor any of this. Knowing that it continues without you is the permission slip you needed. The universe works. You may sleep. Let your attention grow soft at the edges, the way a photograph softens when the lens finds a new focus. If you choose to picture a single star and keep your gaze there, do so only as long as the look is pleasant. When it is pleasant to look at nothing in particular, let your gaze have that gift. If you choose to travel again in memory past the rim of a black hole, into the rooms where direction becomes in, out through the spiral lanes of a city of suns, do so as a passenger whose only task is to observe what is already gentle. When the images tire, let them settle in a quiet drawer and close it without a click. The simplest picture is often the best one for sleep. A dark room, a small window, a few stars that keep their place. You might take one more slow breath on purpose. Inhale for comfort. Hold the top lightly, as if you were holding a page before turning it. Exhale as if you were placing that page down and smoothing it with your palm. At the end of the breath, notice the small pause that arrives by itself. That pause is a cousin of the cosmic silence you visited. It appears without being forced. It stays as long as it needs to. It leaves when the next breath is ready. If you are very gentle, you can balance on that pause the way you might balance on a quiet dock over a still lake, watching the reflection of a star tremble once and then return to perfect stillness. Balance there for as long as it is sweet to do so. Let sleep find you on that dock. Now gather the simple reassurances that require no proof. You are safe enough, here and now. You are warm enough. There is nothing you must hold that cannot be set down for a few hours. The people and tasks that love you would rather meet you rested than vigilant. The night will keep what needs keeping. The morning will return what needs returning. The stars do not audit you. The darkness does not grade you. The horizon does not test you. Every judge you feared is off duty, and in their place stands only the caretaker of a quiet house, dimming the lamps in the hallway so that you may find your room without stumbling. Let the final images be close at hand, a soft pillow, a blanket that carries the day's last warmth, a window that frames a small triangle of sky. If a star passes through that triangle, bless it and release it. If a cloud decides to wander by, bless it and release it. If nothing crosses the frame at all, bless the stillness and keep it. Imagine that the ceiling above you is the soft underside of the Milky Way, and that directly beneath it, in the space where your chest rises and falls, there is a faithful copy of the night, a private sky that brightens and dims with each breath, a private silence that enlarges by the quietest degrees until it is big enough to hold sleep. When you are ready now, or in a few more breaths, let the sentences turn to cotton. Let the cotton turn to fog. Let the fog settle into a lake, and let the lake become so smooth that it forgets what a ripple is. Dreams, like gentle boats, will find their way across without needing oars. You will not have to steer. The boats know the shore. They will carry you to a morning that inherits this calm and keeps it long enough for coffee, for sunlight on a table, for the first friendly task of the day. Trust that promise the way the galaxies trust their centers, and the way the little craft trusts its course, and the way the horizon trusts itself to remain exactly where it should. Good night, traveler under a grand sky. May the quiet you carry be wide and kind. May the darkness be a blanket rather than a wall.